How you doing? You know, laid my uncle to rest yesterday. Uh, also blew a thermostat near Riley's parking lot. It's been a less than stellar week. Not the best in history.
I think back to all the better days when I used to be young and free. I remember her like it was yesterday. She was so beautiful to me. In my mind sometimes I run away to this time back in history. She reminds me of the summertime way back in 2003. Hey, she was a cutie in a sundress. I told her I just had to confess, I got a crush on you, darling. Them long tan legs got me falling. And I know we just met. Yeah. But I heard that love at first sight ain't a myth. Oh no. Yeah, I wanna take you out on a dance floor, girl. I wanna hear you screaming out for some more, girl. I wanna do something that they call crazy. Call you my baby, my pretty lady. I wanna be with you until we're fucking 80. I wanna watch the sunset with you daily. Keep my baby safe as we live, always chasing. Hearts racing when I'm with you, I'm just saying. Back to all the better days when I used to be young and free. I remember her like it was yesterday. She was so beautiful to me. In my mind sometimes I run away to this time back in history. She reminds me of the summertime way back in 2003. Hey. I've been chilling on the coast with my homegirl. The palm trees and the time moving slow, girls. Back to my place, hey, you can call it home, girl. Pina coladas on tap, we alone, girl. I want a piece of you, you want a piece of me. Ray-Bans on, gotta block out the heat. I love your smile too, I've never felt so free. Bring it on, girl, work that body here to me. And I know that summer only lasts 3 months. Yeah. We got the whole world, travel with me, girl. And we'll never stop chasing the sun. That's right. On the run, we ain't done till we find what we want. So we can stop anytime we want. Cause we on the run, we ain't done till we find what we want. But I already found the one. I think back to all the better days when I used to be young and free. I remember her like it was yesterday. She was so beautiful to me. In my mind sometimes I run away to this time back in history. She reminds me of the summertime way back in 2003.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We are chilling with Sasquatch tonight. It's going to be sort of probably a bit of a downer, but we're still going to go through with it. But sometimes things don't work out just the way you think, and America is a perfect, exact example of that particular sentiment. There is a particular town in northern Maine who maintained something of a shooting war for 200 years, and it is where we get the term maniac from. Um, Now, I went over all this a couple of days ago, but I've had a bit of a rough week, and I'm not really exactly up to date on exactly what's in this list over here. I know what it is. I remember putting it in there. I don't really remember why. So we're going to kind of free ball it and let it fly like that, right? We're going commando. So, like, no BS. What's up, Heather? Let's go through. Let's try to stop our stuttering and move on to something else. English, motherfucker. Do you speak it sometimes? We got AJot in the house. She's actually got the link. She may hop in. She's supposed to be like my YouTube stress animal or something, but she doesn't. She doesn't do so well no more. We got LBG. Good to see you, Willow. Hello, Papa. Is that like the kid? Like the please, sir, could I have some more? I mean, oh, that's kind of how I heard it. What's up, Anti Jack? Anti at Jack. I never get that right. Steve O. Good to see you, bud. Truth be told, my brother from another mother. That is the guy right there. We kind of started it all, both of us. Both of us, maybe. There's a joke in there somewhere. Commando. Yeah, right. What's up, Untethered? Say what again, motherfucker? Say what one more motherfucking time. Right? You want another Von? I too. Another Von. No. She's got the link. She got a phone call right before we went live. She had to go deal with some stuff, and no smoke. I mean, people got lives. This is a hobby, right? That's what we're doing. That's what we're calling it, right? All right. So back to the freaking topic. Listen, why is my thing over here not functioning anymore? Fix it. Is it not going to function at all? That is weird. Okay, all right, it'll function. So in the northern Maine, there were these. We'll just let him. We're gonna let the guy over here who did the excellent work on this particular topic, Mr. David Hoffman. Now, homie, he's got the whole YouTube thing down pat. In fact, if I'm gonna catch some kind of weird copyright thing over here, it'll probably be this video. That out of the way, and that way, if it happens, I can skip to the next one. We can just move on. We'll do it something like that. So, Maniacs. It does not come from maniacal. It does not come from mania. Maniacs is derived from the concept of these fuckers up here going at loggerheads at each other for like 200 years over a bucket or some shit. I can't even remember what the reason was. I'm sure homie covers it. But it was like the Hatfield McCoy feud, but in Maine, and it didn't involve specific families. It involved two specific towns, and I have no idea. I mean, America, I guess. We don't really need a reason. We just sitting around proud, ready to pop all the time. It's just, you provide the reason. That's the nature of it. Just laying out, yeah, but that's the way we like to do it, if possible, especially coming up on summer too. You're gonna have to learn to do the lazy days, brother. You can't be out there running around like a 20-year-old with your freaking camera swinging in everybody's face. It's gonna be too hot for that shit. I might shoot you myself. Don't fuck with me like that.
Beneath this old photograph lies the following inscription. The final separation of Rockport, Maine from its nearest neighbor, Camden, Maine, took place on February 25th, 1891. As far as the census and tax folks were concerned, Camden Rockport was one town. But to the residents of Camden and Rockport, there were two distinctly different towns. Camden had a larger downtown area and more wealthy citizens, while Rockport had the lime industry and a profitable ice business, which employed many more people. Camdenites looked down at Rockport folks, and Rockporters thought Camden folk were superior.
And that's basically all it takes right there. You let that drag out long enough across enough generations, and you end up with a shooting war. It inevitably degrades from there.
Rockport boys would get over by the line, and then we'd stop. They used to say, Camden bombs live on rum. Yep. And we'd say, Rockport paddywhackers live on soda crackers.
Literal schoolyard jobs. Well, that ain't that the day, right? That's those days, bud.
They used to get out there by the quarries of the town line, throw rocks to each other. It was a pastime in the evening.
There was always a difference in the class of people or in Camden and Rockport. And when Rockport needed help to restore
Sody
a bridge,
crackers, yeah.
to rebuild a bridge across Goose River, Camden did not want to help. And there was, I just think think that sometimes Rockport felt too that there was a sense of jealousy, and we never could figure out why.
Hostility between the two towns exaggerated a dispute in 1884 over whether or not Rockport should have a new iron bridge over Goose River.
You figure a bridge would be a good thing, right? No, y'all keep y'all's bridge. We don't want no bridge. Some of y'all might try to come over here and we ain't having none of that. It's just a bridge, bro. Sody crackers. Yeah, he did. Pretty sure he did.
Camden residents felt the old bridge was sufficient, but Rockport residents wanted a new bridge that would be safe.
I don't know, man.
Camden residents
You're not wrong. Facts detected.
didn't feel that they should pay for this luxury. They insisted that the Rockport part of Camden separate and become its own town.
They decided that Camden wanted to withdraw and wanted to go on their own, and so I think Rockport said, good enough, go. That was just about the idea of the thing,
Hey,
you know.
Teresa, welcome
They
to the
just
show.
felt that, well, we can
Good to
do it
see you.
alone.
In 1891, the tension between the residents of Camden and the Rockport part of Camden reached a fever pitch. As the newspapers reported it, today, February 25th, 1891, Rockport, Maine and Camden, Maine have finally decided to separate. The two communities have little socially and economically in common. Rockport is the more rural in character,
Okay.
while Camden has established itself as a center of trade.
Why would that be an issue? But one completely fails if the other one fails, because I guarantee you they source their food, fruits and vegetables and animals and all that stuff from the rural area. So like, I don't know, man. People be funny. Welcome to America. Welcome to America. We got our bacon shotguns.
In a recent meeting, a climax was reached. Several brawls have been reported in recent days.
You had to save and skimp and try shovel snow, whatever you can find. All the kids shovel snow. I shovel snow. Cost 25 cents an hour. We shovel snow.
I've never shoveled snow. I've never seen enough snow to actually shovel. Not really. Not that you could shovel. The snow that I saw that was deep enough to shovel was also as hard as granite. It was not snow. It was white ice on everything. It's absolutely debilitating. It completely crippled this whole county for like a week. A little bit of sleet to ruin this place, man. We're subtropical. What are y'all doing with that shit up there anyway? I don't get it.
We shoveled the sidewalks and shoveled across the bridge, and all the sidewalks were shoveled in those days.
Apparently you're shoveling.
And the kids did it.
Gotcha.
And it's all handwork, actually. You know, you hired a neighbor that had a team of horses plowing aerial garden. From there on, it was hoeing hand and weeding.
My father
Funny,
used to
I don't
use
remember
his,
that.
his horse and wagon, and every Saturday would go to Rockport to peddle eggs and butter. And as a little girl, I used to go with him. And that's when and how I learned to make change.
Businesses flourished. Rockport Ice Company, the Story Shirt Factory, the Cooperage and Grist Mill of S.C. and H.L. Shepherd Company, not to mention the carpenters, masons, boat builders, sail makers, and granite workers. Most important economically, Rockport was to become.
All right, so for a part of the year, they had these people whose job it was to go out and cut up chunks of the river to put it on train cars to ship it south or west, as the case may be, I suppose. And I kind of imagine stuff like that happening in the glaciers too, which might explain an awful lot in the long run. Maybe. I don't know.
Become
Hey,
the
Kat.
center
Welcome to
of
the
one
show.
of the greatest lime-producing regions in America. Rockport's lime industry, the largest
Thank you,
employer
Teresa.
in the area.
Putting in work over here. I
The
got to
quaint,
work.
charming, and quiet Rockport of today was, around 1900, an industrial, noisy, smoky place. The lime kiln dominated the town. Freshly cut lime rock was brought from several local quarries to the kilns for processing. The kilns were huge,
Much love,
pressurized
Karen. Good to see you
ovens that baked the lime, which was then bagged and used for cement mortar.
They would go out on a platform with cables coming down to four corners of the platform with no sides on it at all, and just stand on that platform and go down hundreds of feet down into that quarry, the Jacob quarry that's right beside the.
Man, I should have a field day with that one. Some MSHA writer currently, some engineer is currently having hives break out on him randomly. I have to call my people, get them to call his people, and get that shit straightened out. Grasshopper, what is up, bud? Good to see you. Donate and watch again. Hell yeah, that's what I call a fan right there, bud. Yes, sir. That's the way you do it.
The Union Street is the deepest one, and I remember looking down in there, and they looked like flies down there. And down in there, they were drilling and blasting, and lots of injuries. And the same thing down at the kilns, where they brought the limestone over and put it into the tops of the kilns, and down below.
Ooh, I did a mountain of editing today. I probably have 10 hours of content that I need to upload in episode format. And so I'm trying to decide, should I do all of this in like a every other day kind of rush, or should I bring these because all of these were done like a couple of months ago. It's Manuel Mata right after he got out of jail and right before he went to jail again for the same thing somehow. That man's life is an utter mystery to me. I don't know how any of that's permitted to happen, but more power to him. I got, let's see, it's like 10 different people. It's Hobble Squatch. There was Poopy Archaeology, Third Coast Cop Watch. I got all of them edited up, and so far I've only made one major error that I counted as major error. It's only like 10 seconds, but somewhere in some of the stuff I'm using repetitively, there is copyright material in little tidbits of my shorts that as a short, it doesn't catch as copyright. But when I put it into a long form format video, apparently they go over it a little bit tighter and they do catch it, right? And it's I don't know, dude. Like I put it up and I'm like, okay, I'll release this tomorrow at 2 or whatever, and it's like, oh yeah, it's blocked in 37 countries. I'm like, well, that's sad. What if somebody over there wants to see it? No, I don't know. It just seems like the thing to do, try to clear all that shit up. But it's in my shorts that I'm using like closers, and I did it to all of them. And I didn't realize that I was screwing up. So I might have to go clip those and use particular ones or something. I don't know. Not sure what to do with it.
Oh, where the line.
Oh, and next Wednesday, I'm supposed to go and hang out with ATL Audits at his crib or somewhere nearby his crib. Something about steaks. I'm down. He was like, what kind of steak do you like? I was like, yes. Steaks will do. But I just any old part of the cow. Not picky.
Live
hey,
line
Jonica,
came
welcome
out.
to the show, buddy.
The,
Good to see you.
If any water touched them, they would spark up, and the men were burned very often. Sometimes lost a hand or something, lost an eye, things like that, because it was really, really hard work, and the hours were long because those kilns had to be going 24 hours a day.
They smoked up the whole town. Sometimes
So
the
did
smoke literally obscured the sunlight from the Rockport skyline.
We had the best lime in the world in Rockport,
world.
Camden. Best lime in the world. And the reason we lost it because China had good lime and they could produce it for 1/3 of what we were doing. That's the reason we lost it.
You could come into Rockport Harbor and the place was
Listen
so full
to
of
that
boats
accent
that
and the
you
way
could
he's
walk
chewing into them bees,
right from
man.
one shore to the other,
Rockport
boat to
Harbor.
boat, because there were boats in there bringing in wood, to burn the
Wood.
lime kilns, boats in there loading for lime,
Books.
and then boats in there loading for ice,
Oh,
for the
ice.
Rockport ice.
Lily Pond, not only famous for its beauty, but for the purity of its water and its ice, which was sold all over the world.
You didn't make
Yeah.
ice in them days. No one knew how.
So they say about Buck
Machine that
County,
made ice.
Alabama.
There was the only ice there was anywhere in the world is what was cut off in Lily Pond or some other pond.
The Rockport Ice Company provided work for the men who cut it, and
Right,
summer
that
work
makes
for the
sense.
men who stored it and shipped it.
Oh, good.
The ice was
Has to go
cut by
somewhere, right?
hand, and it had big saws, and you'd only have one man using those saws
That
because
makes
he couldn't
sense.
get on the other end. It was in
Yeah,
the
I know.
water down below, and then they were put onto sleds with horses that are called jiggers. They
careful.
were hauled
Be
over
real
to
careful.
the
This isn't that kind
ice
of show.
houses across the harbor
Calm down.
below Mechanic Street, and that had about 3 or 4 big ice houses, and they went on a
Checks
conveyor belt and were hoisted up on a conveyor belt.
Yeah.
So there was stacks and stacks of chunks of square ice, and those were put
Square.
onto big barges
Square ice.
and shipped
Barges.
down all through the South because there was no refrigeration
South.
in those days.
South.
The blocks of ice slid from Lily Pond to the harbor, where large ships packed with sawdust carried the ice to the southern United States, the Caribbean, and South America.
I don't know about you. I'm finding the music. a
They
little
used to
distracting.
call it the Rockport Blue Ice because it was so clear that you could put a dime down,
South.
set a cake of ice on it,
To send the
and
ice
look
down
through
south.
the cake and read the date on the dime.
Aha. Get in the car, we'll go to the bar. You know.
1904, a year for endings.
Oh, good.
That was the year the last commercial ship was built in Rockport, and also the last year for the ice industry, which came to an end with the introduction of refrigeration.
Right? Yeah, no. When I was
Today-
looking up, what was it? So, something to do with Lake Mead. I came across this wild ass story out of Lake Tahoe about this was back, I don't know how long ago. It was really, really old, but they were pulling up blocks of ice out of the lake for, I guess, to sell or whatever. It never really explained that part, but they came up with some dude that had been missing for like 3 years or something. His ass had been like frozen and stuck at the bottom of the lake, and he had only recently thawed out enough to float to the top and then refreeze into the ice. Something like that. I can't remember the details, but that'd probably be a better video, wouldn't it? My bad. What's up, Tails? Good to see you, girl. Snark, Boopy. I'm Zaxxon. Good to see you too. Welcome to the show. Hey man, listen, that Xterra blew a thermostat in O'Reilly's parking lot when I went to go check on my struts, right? Because I wanted to get direct replacements for what's on it, not what came on it, you know. So I was going up there to get it checked out, to get a couple of struts ahead of time so I can just swap them out. And I pull in and the damn thing runs hot, stays hot, and doesn't stop being hot. I had to sit there for about an hour and a half, let it cool off. And then I remembered, wait a second, these things come with a massive heater core because you're kind of halfway expected to sleep in them. So it has this huge, enormous heater cores on them. And I turned on the heater, realized that would actually fly, and I drove it home. And it ran hot right before I got in again. I was like, well, damn. But it never blew any steam. It never popped any gaskets, nothing like that. It just got a little warm. And Unindoctrinated, welcome to the show. Good to see you.
The lilies still grow in Lily Pond, but the water, though not as bad as it was 6 years ago, is not good enough to drink.
Well, it depends on the date.
And in 1907,
Ice cubes
a
might
great
come from
fire
Sandman,
destroyed the Rockport lime kiln.
but probably not.
Although
summer.
firemen worked heroically, the fire could not be put out because water cannot extinguish burning lime.
Right.
That fire marked the end of Rockport's last major industry. It was common for a businessman to share a meal with a poor
I know
farmer.
it's the thermostat. I had my rich monkey come over and check it out, which it just so happens he was coming over that afternoon to look at it anyway. And he come in, I was like, thermostat went on. He's like, are you sure? I was cranking it up. It was like, give it a few minutes, it won't open. He's like, yep, that's thermostat. All right. I'll come change it Saturday if you ain't done it before then. All right. What else can I do, man? I mean, I guarantee you that thing sat behind somebody's house for 10 years, probably. So I'm over here knocking all the dust off. I'm going to drive it for about another 20 miles and change the oil again. And then I'm going to flush that transmission or something. I don't know. I'm not sure what I'm going to do with it. I got to talk to my wrench monkey, you know. That's what we do.
Farmer on a cold winter night. In the 1923 tax report, there is a listing for care of the poor, and the sum of $3,349 set aside so that Rockport could take care of its less fortunate.
Nobody ever thought about somebody else's property. I mean, they knew it was their property, but there was.
All right, so you got to pop off the fan, and then there's this rail that holds a pipe in place. You got to take it out because you can't get the socket in straight. And then you got to pop off this piece of pipe. It's got a little bracket on it. And it's like a rubber hose comes to a piece of metal and then leaves a piece of metal and goes back to rubber hose for some reason. It goes over to the thermostat. You got to take that off, move it back. It'll just fold out of the way. After that, it should be fairly simple. Just three bolts, pop them out, pop it off, file everything down, make sure it's all clean, put some of that RTB stuff on it. I got a gasket, but it says not to use a gasket, but I got the damn thing anyway because I'm autistic and I can't help myself. I get all the parts. All the parts, man. If you don't have all the parts, you can't fix it. It can't be done. You can rig it, but you can't fix it without all the parts. And when you get done, if you have extra parts, that's not always just bonus. Sometimes that means you have to take it back apart and figure out why you have extra parts. Or usually the way it goes is you have the extra parts and you crank it up and figure out immediately why you have extra parts. That's how that usually goes.
There was no law against walking across it or going freely on the beach and on the shipyards and so forth like that. It seemed to be common ground, really.
It'd come a farming time we should have a garden, plant some grain and stuff. I came home from the milk cart one day and the field is full of neighbors plowing and putting our garden in. They did such things as that all the time.
My father, every spring, he would take his tractor and he'd ride down the road and he'd stop at these different places, plow up their gardens.
Now, if memory serves right, if I remember properly, it's the 2004 to 2009 Jeeps that are popping their freaking exhaust manifold bolts left, right, and center, right? It's normal to not be okay. See, that's kind of how I feel about it. You're not supposed to be okay. Nowhere in the manual to life, which I didn't get my copy of. I'm not sure who got it. But yeah, parts is parts. Well, I mean, you got a choice. You can go buy a brand new vehicle, spend 50, 60, 70, 80, $100,000 on a brand new vehicle that does exactly what you want it to do. And from the day you sign on the line until you sell that thing out of absolute distress for whatever you can get out of it, you are on the hook for an unlimited and open-ended contract on recalls. They keep sending back for your car. You got to keep sending it back in. And then there's things that are wrong with these new cars that they're not doing recalls on, like the Jeep blowing off their freaking exhaust bolts left, right, and center. That is recallable. That could be fixed by using a different powertrain, and that's all it takes, because the bolts are under freaking engineered for their role, so it's no good. Yeah, just about bulletproof. You're not wrong. Keep the oil changed. Just that's it. Keep the oil changed. Don't listen to nobody about the switching up to 10W. Don't do it. Go with whatever Jeep recommends. Just change it more often if needed. Let it burn a little oil if it needs to. Just feed it. Just feed it. That's all you got to do. Last till the second coming, man. You'll be riding in style, 4-wheel drive and everything. I gotta get a come along hooked up to that front bumper on that Xterra, because one of the runner lights is too close to the frame, and I can't put it in. Very first bump I go over is going to break it. What's up, Kevin? Welcome to the show, bud. Yeah, I know your car is a Harley. I know, man. That's a pretty cool Harley, I gotta say. It always baffled me though. Why is it like everyone I know who has a Harley? You're gonna hate me for this, and I'm gonna have to eat this later. I'll eat the crow later. Why is it everybody I know who has a Harley has the coolest Harley I've ever seen, but never rides it anywhere? Like it's always sitting up on blocks in the garage, getting something else changed on it, something put on it, and like they'll ride it for a couple of days, and then it's back up on the blocks getting the chain adjusted or something. I don't know, man. It reminds me of this saying that I heard back in the day: when you ride a Harley, you ride the best, you ride a mile, and you walk the rest. Might have to go with a Honda, bud, but that's just me. I don't know. Kind of feel like this has gone down the freaking direction of a Rockport. It's the donut. Murray Lewis feet. Not as great as I thought it would be. The plague of Cyprian Rome's encounter with Ebola. It's a full 15 minutes. Great famine. Kind of thinking about doing it in my own order. Flip flops are really low maintenance. Yeah, that's true, man. You ain't even got to change the oil on that one. You just got to, pit and pat. What you got to do. The Shoe Leather Express runs 24/7. I like your style. That's good. It's a good way to be, bud. That'll get you there. That'll get you there every single time. Because if you don't mind walking somewhere, you'll get there. Pretty trailer queens. It's the historian's craft.
Between 165 and 180, the Antonine Plague ravaged the Roman Empire, and about 60 years later, between 249 and 262, the Romans were visited by another outbreak of disease, and the resulting chain of events were catastrophic. The 240s stand out in Roman history thanks to recent evidence pulled from climatology. This was a decade which appears to have been characterized by an exceptionally long drought in the southern Mediterranean. North Africa and the Levant experienced prolonged dry spells, and in Egypt, the Nile failed to flood in 244,
Hello,
and in 245
George.
and
Welcome
246,
to the show, bud.
the floods
Good to
came,
see
but they
you.
were not sufficient for farming, and documents from the period make note of unflooded land, a new characterization for Egyptian farms. For most of the decade, Egyptian harvests either failed or were nowhere near the levels they needed to be,
I'm
and it
Zaxxon. Do I
severely
have your
impacted
email
tax
address?
revenue for one of the
Is
empire's
it related
wealthiest
to I'm
and most
Zaxxon?
abundant
Because I've looked
provinces.
through and
When
I
this
can't
was
find you
combined
in
with a
there.
recent war the Romans had fought
it
with
might
the
have been a while
Persians,
back.
a war which the Romans had lost, the Roman Empire was not in a good spot. Now, this is not to say they couldn't have recovered. They had in the past, and they would do so again in the future, but the fortunes of Rome were currently looking bleak. Into this system came a plague, known to us as the Plague of Cyprian, and it has been sometimes credited with ushering in the rise of Christianity due to the religious responses to it, as well as the ushering in of the crisis of the 3rd century. Cyprian was the bishop of Carthage between about 248 or 249, we don't really know, and 258. And it is thanks to his writings, mainly his sermons, that we know much of what we do know about the plague which bears his name. Unlike the Antonine Plague, we don't have much information on it, largely for two
Thank you,
reasons.
George.
The first is that the
That's
plague of Cyprian
magnificent.
did not have anyone living through it who came close to the stature of Galen, Rome's greatest physician and our main source for the Antonine Plague. And the other reason is that the 3rd century is a period when our sources are often few and far between. One of our major sources, for example, is suspected to have been a forgery, and another is one we think existed, but no longer exists and has been attempted to be reconstructed to varying degrees of success. So in many ways, we're going in blind. Now, the plague of Cyprian was thought to have affected only North Africa once upon a time,
make sure I
but
got
recent
this right.
research...
And y'all check me in chat, make sure I got this right. They have one source they think is fake, just outright fake. It's total hoax. The other source used to exist and has been recreated from people's memories, I guess. People just wrote the pieces they remembered and they tried to reassemble it or something. I mean, I guess that could work to an extent, but how much do you remember of your 10th grade science textbook? If you and your entire 10th grade science class got together, how much of that textbook could y'all recreate? 93%.
And the employment of the hard sciences is starting to rework this picture significantly, and the emerging data informs us that its spread was much, much larger across the Roman world.
E stands for
Egypt,
evidence.
Near the city of Thebes, there was a mass grave from this period,
we need
and
to
the
get
bodies
together
were
and make
all
up our own
burned and
history
covered
together.
with lime. And in 249, we have direct textual evidence of a disease breaking out in Alexandria. And 2 years after that, in 251,
I have these stories.
we have account of a disease outbreak.
I've been thinking about doing a series called Sasquatch Tales, and it was actually Snark and Sass that kind of tipped me into this direction, and I haven't done it. And this is coming across as a byproduct of like these after dark things we do where we watch movies and sit around and bullshit and get drunk or whatever it is we're doing. And right, it was actually real. So the idea being that instead of doing the in addition to doing the live streams that I usually do on my usual schedule or having something drop at that time every week, telling some of the stories that I told backstage, like about Jake's dad, about Untethered's dad riding around with a bear wired to the front of his freaking van for like 5 years, 8 years, something like that. This man was the most terrifying man I've ever seen on 2 feet. He lived next door, like, I don't know, maybe a quarter mile away, maybe not quite that far. And like I said, I mean, if the first thing you knew about a guy was that he had a black bear wired to the hood of his truck, it's right there. You can see it. You go look at it. It's a whole black bear, the whole thing, skeleton, skin, mummified meat. I don't know how that thing didn't run hot. Absolutely terrifying individual. I hear tell he wasn't, and I'll quote, that bad. But I've also heard that he was. So like, I don't know. But I figure if you run over a bear and your response is to just wire it to the hood of your vehicle as an ornament, you should probably be careful around that man. Just be careful, man. Your ass might get wired to the hood next to it. You need to be careful. He does not seem altogether stable. I also hear tell this same individual once hand built a freak, which you'll hear that a lot when people talk about the old man over there, like hand built an adapter of some sort so that he could take the 440 Dodge or Cadillac engine or whatever it was and put it in his tractor, like a 4-speed shifter with a lever. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, he's talking about wheelies and shit. It throw rooster tails out there, like 9 gears in it or something. It was absurd. He runs 65 down the road in a tractor with water in his tires. Fucking retarded, dude. Like, the man was insane. Oh, he built a central heating wood burning stove that you set up in a little building outside, and you hooked up the ductwork in metal from just outside the little outside boiler building, like you'd have a boiler out west on an off-grid type setup. In this case, it was just like a ginormous burn barrel with a huge ass fan and a thing to hook the ductwork to. What's up, Jonathan? Good to see you, bud. And like full speed tractor, dude, that thing was ridiculous. Like I see him coming down the road one day, power sliding it through the mud around the curve right there. You know the one I'm talking about. He was like doing that whole Hudson Hornet bit, turning left into the skid. About 45. Ooh, that man was wild. Mm, mm, mm. He got Tommy Tanner. Now, I love that man to death. He was one of my childhood heroes because he was just as apeshit crazy as I felt like I wanted to be, right? The legend goes, all right, over here at the end of Indian Trail Road, there are two ends to Indian Trail Road. There is one that goes by Tommy Tanner's house, and there is one that does not go by Tommy Tanner's house. And the reason this is the case is because Tommy liked to sleep till about 10:30 in the morning. Get up, do anything you wanted after 10:30, didn't care. You come over there and just blast shotguns under the, he did not care. Before 10:30, just shut up. They started hauling kaolin out from one of the mines over there behind us. What's up, Izzy? Good to see you. One of the mines over there behind his house. And my man's response to the trucks waking him up at 6 a.m. was to go and dig a 3-foot ditch straight across the road, 3 foot wide, and remove the dirt from the vicinity so that they had to haul in dirt to cover it. But first, it jerked the complete front axle out from under a couple of those rigs before they realized it was there. Completely shattered the whole front end of this thing, just fell apart like a bad car commercial. What's up, ATL? Good to see you, bud. It's absolutely bonkers. But this individual, this same individual who created what we refer to as the Tommy Tanner bypass, which is literally a road that does nothing but stay the hell away from him. That's all it does. This is the same individual who, as of 1994, supposedly had a case. Yes, a case. I said the word case of dynamite, of which I'm aware 4 sticks being used out of, and no one knows what happened to it before he died. So there's a decent chance that somewhere out there is a case of dynamite just hanging out somewhere, but nobody's willing to go look for it because, you know, it's dynamite. Why you go poking around in that shit? You go blow your damn face off. Fuck that. Mm-mm. And then you got I got permission. I'm gonna go over here to my buddy Jerry's. He has, I think, a 1964 Dodge Dart extended, I think, and it is in cherry condition. Like, he has been wiping it down with baby diapers for like the past 5 years and stuff. That thing is beautiful. To my knowledge, he doesn't enter it into any car shows or anything like that. I've never heard of him ever doing that, although I have no idea why not. I would. That thing is like freaking cherry red. And it's got like the oh, it is beautiful. I think it's beautiful. You'll like it, ATL. I bet you. I bet you monies.
Break in the city of Rome. All of this very strongly suggests that, much like the Antonine Plague, whatever this was had its origins somewhere in the continent of Africa. The biggest cities were all hit. Alexandria and Rome we've already mentioned, but also Antioch, Carthage, and Athens.
Good to see you, AJ.
And while we don't have extensive medical reports or mortality figures, what we do have are the sermons of Cyprian, in which he does describe the disease, and he says the following in one of them: "The pain in the eyes, the attack of the fevers, and the ailment of all the limbs are the same among us and among others," meaning here the non-Christians, "so long as we share the common flesh of this age. These are adduced as proof of faith, that, as the strength of the body is dissolved, the bowels dissipate in a flow,
Yeah, no, you
that a
can't go
fire that
wrong
begins in the
65 to
inmost depths
74.
burns
They're
up
pretty
into
much all
wounds in the
beautiful,
throat, that the intestines
with a
are
few
shaken with continuous
exceptions,
vomiting,
like the
that the
Fiat,
eyes are set on fire from the force of the blood,
Vito
that the
Beetle, shit
infection of
like
the
that.
deadly
Not,
putrefaction cuts
I
off
mean,
the
not my
feet
cup
or
of
other
tea.
extremities of some, the gait is crippled, or the hearing is blocked, and vision blinded. The symptoms of whatever illness he was describing include fatigue, bloody stool, fever, lesions in the esophagus, conjunctival hemorrhaging, loss of hearing, and blindness. And there are also scattered hints in other sources that unquenchable thirst was also associated with this disease. For 4 years that we officially know of, the plague spread from the
It does
southeast
sound
to
like
the
Ebola. That's
northwest
what I was
across
thinking. I
the
think
Roman
that's
Empire,
what
and some
the
sources
pitch on
refer
this
to
video
disease
is, though.
outbreaks for a total
I
period of
think that's what
15
he's actually
years.
saying. Hold on.
Although scholars are not certain if the plague of Cyprian afflicted the Romans for
Rome's
15
encounter
years,
with Ebola.
or if the other 11 years of
It
disease
does
is
sound
something
like
else.
Ebola.
Cyprian's sermons are our main source for the disease's pathology, but other sources which do mention the sickness make note of three
Dude.
things. In a culture which lacked a
What was the biggest wagon, the station wagon? You know, you had like the Bona. There was it a Bonneville, but and the Vista Cruiser, and you had the Chevelle came as a wagon option for a couple of years. But what was the longest one? What was the biggest wagon? What was the big land ship of the day? Do we know? Oh, good. We can just, why don't you just go move into one of those plague riddled countries and go just live your normal life, live your best life? Probably be worth a mint over there, right?
germ theory of disease, it was nevertheless realized that touching the bodies could spread the contagion. It was believed to be spread by eyesight, and every source which makes mention of the plague emphasizes the blood and bleeding from the eyes. At one time, it was believed that maybe this was smallpox or maybe it was measles, but the study of past infectious diseases, a field which is still only really just
Was
getting
it a Dodge,
started,
though?
has rejected this because it
The
doesn't
uber
quite
big
fit the
one?
pathology. Kyle Harper, a
Seems like it
historian
might
of
have been a
ancient Rome who has
455.
written the only
You might be
book-length
right.
study of disease in the ancient world, taking into account recent scientific research, says the following. Any identification must be highly speculative. We would offer two candidates for consideration. The first is pandemic influenza. The influenza virus has been responsible for some of the worst pandemics in human history, including the Spanish flu epidemic that carried off some 50 million souls at the end of World War I. The lack of clear evidence for influenza from the ancient world is puzzling because the flu is old and it was undoubtedly not a stranger in the ancient world. Influenza is a highly contagious acute respiratory disease that comes in many forms. Most types are relatively mild, causing familiar cold-like symptoms. Other rare types of influenza are more menacing. Zoonotic forms of the disease, especially those native in wild aquatic birds, can be pathogenic to other animals, including pigs, domestic fowl, and humans. When these strains evolve the capacity to spread directly between humans, the results are catastrophic. There have been 4 global outbreaks in the last century, and avian influenza, which includes some dreaded strains such as H5N1, remains a terrifying threat today. Pathogenic zoonotic influenza viruses are extremely lethal. They induce an overheated immune response, which is as dangerous as the viral pneumonia itself. Hence, the young and healthy are paradoxically put at risk by the vigor of their immune response. The lack of any respiratory symptoms in the account of the plague of Cyprian is a strike against the identification. But it is worth reading some observations of the 1918 pandemic. Blood poured from the nose, ears, eye sockets. Some victims lay in agony. Delirium took away others while living. The mucosal
the
membranes
Buick
of the
Estate
nose,
wagon.
pharynx, and the throat became inflamed.
I
The
don't.
conjunctiva, the delicate membrane that lines the eyelids, becomes inflamed.
I don't guess. I don't guess I knew what the Buick was called at that point, but that would be the 455, right? Wouldn't that be Buick? Pretty sure. Sounds right. Those things sound mean, dude. 455 rocket.
Victims suffer headaches, body aches, fever, often complete exhaustion, coughs, often pain, terrific pain, cyanosis, and then there was blood pouring from the body. To see blood trickle and in some cases spurt from someone's nose, mouth, even from the eyes,
Dude,
had to terrify.
we had this neighbor over here named, well, name doesn't matter, but he was a bit of a Mopar freak. And I guess it was Mopar, I don't know, but he had a fetish for 455s. If he was driving it, I don't care if it was a Silverado or Custom Deluxe or what it was, it had a 455 in it. He went to every single pull apart in the Southeast digging up old 455s. It was all he really worked with. So my man had one of those short body safari Jeeps with a 455 rocket under the hood. That thing was, I've seen those things twist up a drive shaft like a freaking knot. And it happened that quick. Bam. Right? Oh man. Take the Chevelle wagon. That bad boy, you came with the option of a 350 or the 396, which was an absolute madhouse of power. I mean, you could run 450, 500 horsepower out of it without really monkeying with it much. You get in there and throw some gas to it, you really stomp up some serious horsepower on them things. Give it a little liquid coercion. The 396 is tough, man. The only issue I've ever heard with them is they tend to be a little bit temperamental. You kind of got to specialize in the 396 to keep them going, but after that, you've got it licked. That 41 Willys Jeep with the Cadillac motor, yeah, the mud wagon, yeah. I think, dude, no. Your dad took it was the same engine that was in that Jeep, and he put it in an old blue pulpwood truck, and it had some kind of a Frankenstein mash of two transmissions on it. And if you've never seen a great big dually dump truck peel out spinning tires and literally rolling coal, you haven't lived. It was the most ridiculous thing you ever saw was a hot rod pulpwood truck. What the hell, dude? Put that thing, what are you doing? I don't get it. Yeah, that's right. Two transmissions. He had like the I don't know. I don't know enough about transmissions to make that work in my head, but he used two hands and two clutches. Which means at some point in time during driving it, yes, you're reaching over. I guess you could shift. Wow, that would be first, second, third, fourth, fifth. Or would you run through the first one and then move up through the second? I don't know.
Verify. From 5 to 15% of all men hospitalized suffered from epistaxis.
It's really
bleeding
doing my
from
head
the
in.
nose. Pandemic influenza might indeed account for the horrifying experience of the plague of Cyprian. The winter seasonality of the plague of Cyprian points to a germ that thrived on close interpersonal contact and direct transmission. The position of the Roman Empire described some of the major flyways of migratory birds and the intensive cultivation of pigs and domestic fowl such as chickens and ducks.
I'm sorry.
Put the Romans at risk. Climate perturbations can suddenly redirect the migratory routes of wild waterfowl, and the strong oscillations of the 8240s could well have provided the environmental nudge for an unfamiliar zoonotic pathogen to find its way into new territory. The flu is a possible agent of the pestilence. A second and more probable identification of the plague of Cyprian is a viral hemorrhagic fever. The pestilence manifested itself as an acute onset disease with burning fever and severe gastrointestinal disorder, and its symptoms included conjunctival bleeding, bloody stool, esophageal lesions, and tissue death in the extremities. These signs fit the course of an infection caused by a virus that induces a fulminant hemorrhagic fever.
Fulminant.
Viral hemorrhagic fevers
That's a
are
good
zoonotic
word.
diseases caused by various families of
Thank you,
RNA
AJ.
viruses. Flaviviruses cause diseases like yellow fever, which have some resemblance to the symptoms described by Cyprian.
10 miles
But
per gallon.
flaviviruses are spread by mosquitoes, and the
Right.
geographic reach, spread of diffusion, and winter seasonality of the plague of Cyprian rule out a mosquito-borne virus. Other families of viral hemorrhagic fevers are borne by rodents or transmitted directly
Well, I'm
between
sure
humans.
gangrene was common. but
Arena
it was
viruses, like
it was
Lassa
the
fever,
virus that seems
spread
to
by
have
rodents.
caused the
Old world
lesions
arena
that
viruses
got
are endemic in
gangrene.
reservoirs in Africa, and it is possible that the plague of Cyprian was
You know,
caused by such an agent.
There is another
However,
one. There is another virus that would fit the winter seasonality. If it was a hantavirus of some description, that would also cause something like a hemorrhagic fever, just more of a upper respiratory version. Your eyeballs and your ears bleed, you rupture your eardrums, and after you go deaf and die screaming in a fever of just absolute insanity. It's not a pretty way to go. There's no good way, I suppose. But 19 gallons per mile, Jesus, dude. you might need to repair that a little bit. I'm pretty sure it's broken.
great rodent-borne pandemics will probably have to
Let
wait
loose
for the
the parking
Justinianic
brake,
plague.
Bo.
The distinctive biology of the plague bacterium and its intricate interspecies dynamics make bubonic plague capable of continental scale pandemics. The speed of travel
What?
and the scale of the outbreak during the plague of Cyprian would be
Imagine
unlikely
the
for an
smell.
arena virus. The speed of diffusion points to direct human-to-human transmission. The belief that caring for the sick and handling the dead were fraught with danger underscores the possibility of a contagion spread between humans. Only one family of hemorrhagic viruses seems to provide a best match for both the pathology and the epidemiology of the plague of Cyprian: filoviruses, whose most notorious representative is the Ebola
Yeah, no,
virus.
you're not that far off.
So
I mean,
that's Harper's
to
take.
be honest, the 396. So if you're running, let's say a 4-barrel carburetor and an open plenum with your standard, little bit of a lopey, can, you're going to be pulling no bullshit like 8 to 10 miles to the gallon, maybe. You might get down single digits if you're not careful. So, like, what I bought out of Texas, and I can't remember what the math worked out to when I was driving home, but I did the math, and that was before my head injury, and I used to know this stuff, but it wasn't pretty. It wasn't pretty at all. It's like a traumatic memory that I just block out. But as soon as I finish getting my shit together over here on these two vehicles, we're going to go to the Grand Marquis, and I got to decide whether I'm going to sell it or give it to one of my daughters, or what's going to happen to it. And then I'm going to turn homie loose on my El Camino. Because seriously, I'm pretty sure I got to pull the whole top end off and replace that cam if I want to get any type of reasonable freaking mileage, right? It should have had a 2-barrel carb, right? The 396 on, well, unless it was the SS, but then it came with like the little restricted carburetors, 4-barrel restricted. I don't remember what they were called, but it was basically the same carburetor the 350 came with, the Corvette 350. It's basically a Corvette engine, but a 396 instead of a 350 or a 454. And there's not a lot of difference there when it comes down, but what it really comes down to is the distance between the ends of the rods, diameter of the rods that you can use. So you can run a heavier gate and everything. You can do a little bit of a meatier overbore with a 396 over a 454 block, and you save 60 pounds or something like that. I don't know. I was led to believe it was a lot at one point in time.
At this point in time, we really don't know. For reasons which I stressed in the video I did on the Antonine Plague, any attempt to retroactively diagnose something from a distance of about 2,000 years is going to be highly problematic, but the evidence we do have and the symptoms which are recorded strongly suggest either Ebola
I'm
or
told
something
I
like
used to,
it.
but I don't really
It's made
remember
more
doing
difficult by the
carburetors.
fact that our encounters with Ebola have really been comparatively recent and the virus is not fully understood. So it is incredibly likely, indeed it's almost certain, that what I'm telling you in this video will be wrong in a few years. Now, did the plague of Cyprian, possibly Ebola, usher in the crisis of the 3rd century? Well, maybe, maybe not. But what we can say for certain about the effects of the outbreak is that it probably pushed the empire over the edge. The Emperor Severus Alexander was killed in 235, and for the next 13 years the succession was not entirely stable, but in 248 things seemed to be looking
You
up.
don't know that.
There was one
They
emperor
might be
in Rome,
murderers and
Philip,
just get away
and
with
the
it.
empire was united.
You don't know.
But when Philip died in 249, the Roman Empire broke apart, and the empire nearly collapsed completely. And for 20 years there was war and there was anarchy. Although, if you lived far from the centers of action, you might not have noticed anything really going on. The Roman Empire, more than anything else, was an economic zone. Goods from North Africa reached Britain, and amber from the Baltic moved down through the land of the barbarians into the Roman Empire, and it ended up all over the place. Rome had a functioning market economy, and while we don't have evidence of something like a stock market, we do have plenty of evidence that people often invested capital in things like rental properties and businesses. All of that was shredded in the crisis of the 3rd century, and as a result, tax revenue fell, which means that the state could not supply soldiers, and as the famous line from Yeats's poem The Second Coming goes, things fall apart, the center cannot hold. Rome was beset by war on all fronts. First, the Danubian frontier broke apart, as Goths invaded across the river and the Black Sea, and then the frontier in the Near East fell, as the Persians, well aware that the military had been devastated by disease, attacked. This strongly suggests that the Roman army had serious problems that went beyond a lack of money. There
That's
were not
exactly
enough
what I
soldiers,
was
quite
thinking.
possibly due to the plague of
Yeah, no, they
Cyprian
do the
killing them
murder and
all
blame it
off.
on their freaking customers.
What we
Why do you
read in the
think
sources which
random Joe
survive
Blows go to
are the
jail for
assembling
murder
of
so much?
militias
It's
all
not
across
them,
the
it's the
empire
mechanics.
to protect territory that the soldiers could not. But why? If we don't want to ascribe a single cause to something like disease, at the very least, it appears to have had a large impact. Out of these 20 years of chaos arose a new type of emperor, a militarized emperor, schooled in war to a degree that previous leaders were not, and almost all of whom hailed from the Danubian frontier. The first of these was Claudius II, who took power after a coup ended the Emperor Gallienus' life. The latter half of the 200s would see Rome transformed by a military revolution, which altered the mechanics of the empire completely. It became more autocratic. Christianity rose to prominence and backed the state ideology. Eventually, soldiers bore Christian symbols on their shields, and where they went, so too did God. The provinces were reworked, the bureaucracy
Why
expanded,
do I feel like this was during
barbarians
the
clambered at the
flagellate?
gates, and behind it all,
The walking
the plague lurked.
flagellates?
Pestilence, inflation, famine, and war destabilized the Roman Empire, and a strong hand was required to steer the imperial project back from the brink. The time of the barracks emperors had come.
Oh. Fantastic. All right, I'm going to drop the link in chat. I'm going to take me a little intermission. I'll be right back. There's the link. Here's the pinned link. Maybe it'll stick around. Sometimes it do, sometimes it don't. And y'all listen to this most annoying shit that I could possibly find to use for a transition type.
Yeah, Yeah, let's go. I ain't the first with the curse, with the thirst that I wanna be better, not worse, man, it hurts. I'm on this earth with my words, and I put them all together, insert, cause I wanna have worth. Working hella hard till they put me in the dirt. Gonna go far, man, listen to my words. Gonna be a star, man, life's like a blur. When you're working this hard till you get what you deserve. Yeah, I ain't taking a backseat, I'm passing anybody else who is rapping. I'm nasty, ain't nobody able to catch me. They gasping, they cannot compare, they can't match me. I'm at half speed, I got your girl and she laughing and dancing, hanging on my butt, she asking to crash with me, smash with me. She savage, she wants cash money, and she knows that I live lavishly. I wanna live, I'm cold inside, give all I have just to feel alive. I fight to live, I fight to strive. One day I'll have what I want. I want the whole world in the palm of my hand. I got a plan, I'm the man. Now I'm teaching the game, a veteran, better than anybody else who tests me. I'm ready, looking in my hand and it's steady. I'm trending, ascending and blending, lyrical bending. Now I'm spreading and getting my name out now. Yeah, they hearing me laugh, all the crowds repping the sound. I'm hitting the ground, running, up and coming, ain't nothing.
All right, we already have one customer.
Yep,
up,
that's
bud?
annoying.
Yeah, no, the idea is to keep it upbeat so that people can kind of stick around or something. It just, I don't know, man. It's kind of, it is a little annoying, especially if you've heard it twice.
Right. Fix that.
What are we doing?
Fix that.
What are we fixing?
You got my head off the screen.
Off the screen.
I guess it's my camera. I don't know. Hold on. That's better.
He still don't
Weird.
like it.
It's weird. Do you not see that? Is it just mine?
Yeah. You were on the very edge of the thing.
Okay. So it wasn't just me then.
No, it wasn't just
I'll
you.
just move over here some more. That's better.
Okay. Anybody else having a problem with that? What's up, Princess? Welcome to the show, girl. All right. How much of this you've been here for a minute? How much of this you've been following?
I watched the whole thing.
All right. So this one, the next bit that I've got here, and darn it, go away. This is done by Patterns of Evidence, which is sort of a documentarian channel type. They do really good highlights of very specific events. So if you want to know something about, I don't know, the final battle of Alexander the Great, you go checking out one of their videos. I bet you they've covered it. I haven't checked, but I bet it's there, right up their alley.
Yeah, some of the stuff in that title I cover.
Mm-hmm.
And some of it I don't.
This particular video covers the effects. I think it's the 3 different periods of similar types of weather activity that created famines in Egypt.
Yeah,
specifically Egypt. So it involves the Nile floods and whether or not it floods and how it floods and how much and what parts and yada yada yada. Whether it's a blue Nile or a white Nile flood.
Oh, it definitely floods.
Yeah, but how much determines how much famine occurs in that country. If it does not flood properly at the right times, then it ruins everything. And
yes,
the following
because they
year,
depend on it.
Desolation.
At one time, the Nile was either wider or it was in another location.
I want to see it. Show it to me. Let me see it. There you go. All right, that's good enough.
Hello.
Hello. How you
How art
feeling?
thou?
Thou is okay.
You have quite the lovely breast plate.
I know.
Nice breast. plate. In fact, I think it's 2 plates. And they're both full.
Gotta have something to hold it up, man.
That's right. And a wicked horny hat.
Yeah, it's a horny hat. I like it.
That looks like horns anyway. Is that the scales of justice hanging off the screen there?
Yes.
Kind of looks that way. I like that. It's nice.
And I can't use the yellow peril. I can't use that as a thing for my truck. I can't do that. Do you know what the yellow peril was? It was the term used by American propagandists to color the Japanese as a less than human.
Yeah, I've heard something like that.
It would be a direct reference to specifically racist propaganda, and I can't do that.
Yeah,
I
just call it the slant eye.
Yeah, right. Let's just but I've already kind of flirted on the edge of that with the whole Caucasian driving around the vehicle called the Yellow Peril. I think that might be crossing the fucking line. just a little bit.
Yellow Peril, Red Scare. Who's counting?
Have you ever read the Red Death? The Scarlet Death.
I think I've read parts of it. I don't think I read the whole thing.
I can't remember the author's name.
I read the Scarlet Letter. Does that count?
That's what I was gonna say.
The Scarlet Death is I think that's the name. Scarlet Death. It's about a generation or two after the fall, not quite a generation after the fall of our modern society, and it's a bunch of like Aboriginal boys running around in downtown LA.
Okay, I have not read that.
Vast wasteland of, and
I wasn't sure if you had the title right, but I definitely have not read that.
I might not have the title right. It's the Scarlet Death. I'm pretty sure.
That sounds right, but I don't think I've read that.
Basically, it's sort of a Peter Pan knockoff. The actual story in the book, the dude in question never actually participates in what the kids do. He just tells the stories, and so he sort of occupies the niche of as sort of a father / Captain Hook type.
Gotcha.
Because sometimes he does kind of get scary, but it's not really a threat. I don't know, it's hard to explain. You'd have to read it.
So it's fiction.
Yeah.
Yeah, completely. I don't read a lot of fiction.
It's written by a fairly famous author. Hold on a second. I will figure it out because I'm that type of guy. We'll do it live.
We'll do it live. Fuck it.
Fuck it. We'll do it live. The Scarlet Plague. That's it.
Scarlet Plague. Okay.
It's by Jack London.
I've seen the book. I've not read it.
Yeah, no, it's the book itself is actually pretty freaking good. Probably has 7 characters total. And you have an old guy and you have children, because the only people who survived were people who had the Scarlet Plague before. And apparently he caught it in Southeast Asia while he was on vacation, got sick as hell, almost killed him. And he went home and he lived his entire life only to find out that the end of the world was brought about by a cold that he got when he was 14.
And
you're welcome, darling.
Sorry. Did the government force him to take vaccinations that caused most people to go blind or have heart attacks? And then
so quick that all he could think of to do, and it doesn't really cover much of this, but it all happened so quick that he went to the local hospitals and gathered up the 14 babies that were sitting around, and he gathered up to 4 or 5 medium-aged kids that were alive, and he
so
put
herd
them
immunity
home over here and taught them how to hunt and eat, and he did the best he could. He was just one dude. He was an old dude then. You know,
That sounds
So
like the
maybe they ain't
sequel
so
to
dumb.
Logan's Run.
Yeah, it's sort of an inverse of Logan's Run. You have this 80, 90-year-old guy, and then the very next oldest person is 20
Mhm.
because the disease killed everyone over a certain age.
There was a
And he
certain period of time in the 70s where they were obsessed with this modernist dystopian future type
No,
story,
you're
and
not
it just
wrong.
seemed like everything was like that.
Go look at The Prisoner, Logan's Run, Battlestar Galactica.
Yeah, all of it.
Freaking just about everything that came out of that time period has some sort of either authoritarian or anti-disestablishmentarianism.
The last episode of Star Trek with Gary Seven alluded to that kind of future.
One of my favorites, and I know I don't think you're a huge fan. Do you follow the whole Enterprise? With T'Pol.
Yeah, I watched the series. I'm not the biggest fan, but I appreciate it more now than I did when it was on. Because when
Right.
it was on, we were surrounded by a
16.
plethora of things.
There was
and it
Deep
just
Space
didn't-
Nine, Star Trek,
Yeah.
Voyager, Star
It
Trek.
just didn't
Light.
hit right. But if you watch it 20 years later, it's actually pretty good.
That I believe the viewership on that would skyrocket if they just got rid of the theme song.
Yeah. And the theme song wasn't bad. It was just the wrong song for that show.
Once. It's not bad twice, but it's a very long 2.5 minute long
Yes.
theme song in between every single episode that was already padded for time.
Yes. And then, like, on the last season, they decided to jazz it up and added like extra drums to it and a guitar riff, but it was the same song.
I forgot about that.
We'll fix it. We know what to do.
They were trying to spice up the script too, and it went from being a science vessel to being an absolute Cold War with future time enemies that have already affected our past in ways that we can't change, but we're gonna fix it.
And they're like wearing eye patches, and everybody's gruff, and
straight up
breaking
pirates.
the Prime Directive. And
no, well, I mean, in their defense, the Prime Directive hadn't exactly been established in human culture at that point. So, I mean, piracy is a debatable point.
It was just an unusual direction to go.
Good night.
It was creepy though. I'll give them that with where they hit these little pockets of space and everybody would get twisted up.
Right?
Remember that?
Ooh, dude, that
was
shit
creepy.
was nightmarish, man. It reminds me of what is it called? The Unknown Regions in Star Wars.
I don't know about that.
No, see, that's the thing is while you were infiltrating all of Star Trek, it was everywhere, dude. Star Trek was all over the place, and I was more interested in reading something that wasn't being forced down my throat at every single place I go to.
Get it? My son is like a Star Wars nerd. He knows everything. Every show.
What's up, John Eagle? Good to see you, bud.
And I've had to learn some stuff just so I can have conversations with him. So in that vein, I know a little bit about Star Wars, but I'm not a Star Wars fan.
I was not exactly a Star Wars fan. It all started because I was a Boba Fett / Mandalorian fan.
Yeah.
Right.
Like Boba Fett?
Yeah.
The show?
Yeah. Well,
fired.
I mean, it was something.
You're fired.
I mean, it was a thing they did, and I admit nothing.
Fringe. Yes.
Yeah, Fringe is good.
But yeah, I don't know what the hell they were thinking. Well, the Mandalorian is Boba Fett. They just gave him a different name for some reason. So when they came out with Boba Fett, Boba Fett couldn't be Boba Fett because it would contradict.
No, Mandalorian is not Boba Fett.
No, when they designed the Mandalorian, that's the idea. The badass bounty hunter, loner.
Uses Mandalorian Gam. he uses armor designed by Mandalorians because they build the best armor ever made in the galaxy. And he
Right.
was sort of a friend of the clan, so to speak. So he did work for the Mandalorians a bit. And so he
Yeah.
got some Mandalorian armor when he wanted some.
You're talking about Boba Fett. Boba Fett's a
Jango Fett.
clone.
Right. I was talking about Jango Fett. And so
okay.
Boba Fett is not Mandalorian in
No.
any sense of the word, except for the fact that he has his father's armor.
Right. What I'm saying is, I'm not saying that he is Boba Fett. What I'm saying is the popularity of Boba Fett is the reason Mandalorian was made.
Sure.
So they invented this new character, and then somewhere along the line they decided to come out with Boba Fett, but Boba Fett can't be Boba Fett because the Mandalorian, it would take away from that show. So they had to change the character. This is their thinking. Now, Boba Fett is the guy Darth Vader calls when he wants to get shit done.
Darth Vader. You're not wrong there, man. Like, I get what you're saying on this.
Okay.
I get it. But do you remember the opening scene in The Mandalorian where he walks in and tells that motherfucker, you can go warm or you can go cold?
Yes.
But you're going?
Yes. Well, see, in The Mandalorian, when the Boba Fett appeared, it was pretty cool. That was a good scene. But it was short. But that was like the intro to the Boba Fett show. And then when Boba Fett show come out, he's a fat old man that lets the woman do all the work. And I don't understand why they did that other than not wanting to take away from the Mandalorian. What say you, chat?
They did a full-on bait and switch with the Mandalorian. Have you seen the most recent season?
I have not, because I don't like girl power.
All right.
Women should do all the work. No, I disagree. And when I say that, ladies, don't get upset. I'm not saying that I don't think women should have power. That's not what I'm saying. What I'm saying is there's this modern trend in movies and television where they have turned these 90-pound girls into warriors that fight 300-pound men with ease. And that's going to get somebody killed because people believe what they see. That's what I'm saying.
You see what ATL's saying over here. He's already taking his meds tonight. I can tell.
We should have 10 wives. Gina Carano, that's right. Gina Carano, I believe, could kick a man's ass that's 300 pounds.
Right. Okay.
Scarlett Johansson or whoever? No. Katie Sackhoff?
I have
no
issue. You bring me Rhonda Busey and she comes over and knocks some cracker out. I do not have an issue with this. You bring me any one of them MMA chicks. No problem at all. We're good with it, right? I have no issue with it.
But Katie Sackhoff?
No problem. After you see the arc that Sigourney Weaver goes through in Alien, you don't see her doing that shit at the beginning of the movie. But by the end of the movie and the shit she's been through, yeah. We're burning them all down.
See, that's you hit the nail on the head. Sigourney Weaver is a classic, real badass, but she never once loses her femininity to do it. She is beautiful, she is charming, she is graceful, and she whips ass. Now you go to a modern day show, and you got a girl that basically looks like a guy, or
I'll give
dressed
you
up to look like one. And everything they do is unbelievable. Did you see Black Widow?
This is I tried.
That bitch fell out of a skyscraper and lived. No limp.
Have you ever seen the series The 100?
Yes. Is that the one where the aliens abduct so many kids?
No. That's Falling Skies. And that's another really good series.
The other one, not Falling Sky. 4400.
Oh, yeah, no, you might be right. I haven't seen that one yet.
What is the 100?
The 100, all right, there's a war went on Earth, and it killed a bunch of people, and there was radiation everywhere, and they launched the survivors to a space station in space. And here we are 120 years later. The space station is reaching the end of its lifespan, and they have to do something with 100 people, or they're all going to die on the space station.
Did this come out like 5 years ago? I think my kids watched it.
Maybe a little longer ago, but yeah. All right. So there is this one character in the show who is completely disjointed from the rest of the crew. The entire show, she completely doesn't fit. She is called she was a child who was not on the census in the space station. So she was an extra who should have been invented to begin with.
Right.
She was already of voting age when she was discovered and immediately got launched out on this group of 100 volunteers that were sacrificing themselves to save the station, but they land on a green inverted earth that is run amok with wild savages.
Yeah. Yeah, I never watched that show, but my kids loved it.
In it, this chick plays this girl plays a 102-pound dripping, soaking wet, completely naive chick who goes from being just like with the Sigourney Weaver bit, just like in the Terminator. She goes from being this sweet, innocent, inexperienced individual to someone who's been screwed over and done in so many different ways by so many different people that she's just not taking that shit no more.
Yeah,
And
that's the
she's
problem.
killing people.
Yeah, that's the problem. They don't show you getting there. They just start these characters off like badasses. And I'm like, that's not how people are. Yes, a
She
woman
buries
can be
5
that
of the
mean, but
baddest
you have it
motherfuckers in the
costs.
whole series. When
Yeah.
I say she buries them, she was dating them and survived the shit that killed them.
Mhm.
Not because she turned on them. She didn't murder them and nothing like that. She
Right.
just lived through it and killed the people who killed her husband like 9 times. She
I'm
just
talking about like
killed
Ray Skywalker, or I mean Palpatine. Excuse me. Who starts out first movie as a Jedi
full blown
and can
fully
beat
formed.
Luke Skywalker's ass.
I heard a good fan theory on that one. I heard a good fan theory on that one. All right. So what's up, Samuel? Welcome in.
Samael.
You distracted me. Damn it. Wait.
Sorry.
Okay, no. Ray is one of Palpatine's experiments. She is straight up intentionally placed and intentionally located to give her absolutely zero input from force type sensitive folks so that her force abilities would allow her to thrive in a place where life is just destitute to give her original Sith training.
Wouldn't it be nice if they put that in the movie?
Nothing. Even the robots lie to her. Go watch the movie.
Wouldn't it be nice if they put that in the movie? They said none of that.
They didn't say none of it, but it's one of those. If you think about it from this perspective, it's a better movie.
Yeah. See, that's the problem. You have to add stuff to make it a better movie. Stuff that isn't in the movie. And if you and I can do that, sitting here chit-chatting over a podcast, how come these professional writers can't manage it?
I mean, I just troll the internet, look for good ideas.
Listen, bro, they gave the Star Wars franchise to a bunch of people from Starbucks who never saw Star Wars. And they wrote a show.
Dude, if you want a real good read, there is an author named 3 authors. Karen Travis wrote the Mandalorian saga. It's all about the culture that Disney is leaning its entire franchise on currently, like a bloated cow. And she invented all of that trash. Timothy Zahn, who wrote some of the more esoteric sort of like the Thrawn series. There's like 3 or 4 books involving Grand Admiral Thrawn. They are absolutely excellent. I think they were all written by Timothy Zahn. And there's one more truly excellent author over there who had a direct effect on the current interpretation of like the Disney canon version of Mandalorians. Alan,
I prefer James Blish.
Alan, God, I can't. I never Alan Allenson or something like that. I can't remember his name. They're not writers.
Writers getting paid.
They're
to do it.
getting paid to do a thing doesn't make you a professional.
Right. Amen, brother.
If you can't do that thing, nah, you're right, dude. You're right.
As evidence submitted to the court, rings of power.
Unlimited power.
Rings of Power. That the name of that show?
Oh my God. I'm sorry. You talking about the Rings of Wokeness?
No, the show you and I watched. The
Oh, it's
Lord of the
horrible.
Rings
So bad.
abomination.
It was so bad. Oh my God, it was so bad.
A
Like,
3-year-old could have wrote a better story. And would have followed Ken.
dude, I don't even know what to tell you on that one. It's hard to explain why. I'll tell you another one that they completely cheesed the bed with. The Wheel of Time.
Mm,
Can
I've
I
heard
point out
about this.
like all right, so I got a chip on my shoulder about this one because they had every chance, every opportunity, every possibility. They could have made the wokest of woke ass trash, and it would have been dead nut in sync with the theme of the entire series.
Yep.
Right? Because in it are these arch nemesis badass bitches who rule the freaking world, quite literally oppressing the men who would drive it crazy to war, which is go deep, go hard, go harder. They go in and change one of the most critical components in the story that takes place at the very beginning of the very first book to play an extended version of the pronoun game so that you can't tell which one of these 5 individuals is going to be quote unquote the dragon. But
Right.
here's the problem with that. 2 of the characters are female and only males can be the dragon, and they're insane. All of them are crazy. Using the power makes you like a crack addict. You go nuts and start
I bet I know which one was the dragon.
Uniquely.
Mm.
Okay, so here's the issue with the Rings of Power. They went back to try to do something that sounded like it was original canon based off of stories from Silmarillion, but then they turn around and completely screw up north and south on the whole fucking thing. They confuse a temple, a fortress in the fucking mountains for a fortress under the freaking mountains. And then put one of those on the edge of a glacier that should be in the destitute ranges of a fucking desert. And I'm a little pissy now. I'm sorry.
No.
they
changed people's names.
The second age and some shit from the third age and stuck that shit together, saying, "All right, well, it's going to be a whole bunch of fun."
Yeah, what they did was they Wikipedia'd Lord of the Rings, and they got words from Lord of the Rings, and then wrote a story around those words.
Samuel, have you read The Wheel of Time? It's probably 5,000 hours of reading you can't get back once you've done it. It's what happens whenever the main character becomes world building instead of actually, it's hard to explain because the overall moral, and this comes from having wasted a large portion of my teenage years trying to figure this out by reading all of these freaking books, right? The overall moral of the story is it does not matter whether you win or lose. It is the fight itself that is the point. You have good, you have evil, and you must always stand and fight against evil. It doesn't matter if you win. It doesn't matter if you die. It doesn't matter if you succeed or fail. The fact that you stood against the darkness matters.
Yep.
And that's the moral of the whole freaking series. In every single version where he doesn't stand against the darkness, it completely overruns the world. But only in the versions where he takes it all the way to death does Lews Therin back off. And not in the world. Because he resisted. And if we kill him, We lose him in the waft again. We can't find him. We got to go find a new dragon. They try to. Anyway, I'm sorry.
Fab Daddy, what's up?
What's up, Fab
Everything
Daddy?
we use is a product of Star Trek, except my transporter. For some reason, it don't work. That's a deep physics joke.
You're not wrong. Look, one of the things you got to keep in mind is what was his name? It wasn't Ray Bradbury. It was the other asshole.
Roddenberry.
Gene Roddenberry. Gene Roddenberry and Arthur C. Clarke were pen pals. They drank highballs on the Vegas Strip together. They went to fucking book signings and shit together. It was, and Arthur C. Clarke was a totally different type of sci-fi writer.
He's the reason we have satellites.
He's completely different type of sci-fi writer. He didn't write sci-fi shit that was impossible. He wrote sci-fi shit that was utterly possible,
right,
but unwitnessed. Yeah,
right. Well, Star Trek, they wanted to write shit that was utterly impossible but make it sound plausible. So they used science to write, but they feathered the edges to make it
one step further than it's actual really possible. Right.
Yeah, but it sounds great.
Yeah, right. Think about the Hollow Room. Think about the numbers of actual freaking like war crimes that have taken place in that thing.
I'm just thinking about who has to clean all the sperm out of it.
I'm not sure how far that goes.
Well, did you see the Star Trek: The Next Generation with Minuet?
I'm just saying.
I promise you, he banged her.
Stick with me on this one. If you can get her hologram to walk over yonder and stand in a proper location, and then delete her. You know what I'm saying? Like, it might not need if they know what to do with it. I'm just saying. All right, ladies, listen.
Maybe they beam it all out.
Is proof, and that's a bad thing. Quick, swallow the evidence.
Yeah, that first season, Riker was a horn dog. So much so they gave him a horn to play. He was a trombone player. Talk about horny. I would totally do a hologram, says Fab Daddy. Me too.
I try. I mean, I'm trisexual, man. I'll try anything once.
Only thing is it would feel very good. Are you okay there, buddy?
I'm dying over here.
Sound like you found a bone.
Oh, man. We're just dying over here.
Best of both worlds. Tired of you, bye? Huh?
Deuces. Right? Oh,
Peace.
yeah. No. You can use them as hard and as fast as you want, but then as soon as you're tired of fucking with them, you can just send them away.
I got you. Makes
Best
sense.
of both worlds. Yeah, let's say, and I don't know if any of you have ever met a woman like this, but occasionally getting bitched at by a chick will leave me slightly aroused, and I don't know why that is. It happens randomly, and it's not something that I'm ever aware it's going to happen, so it's not like it's something I can take advantage of, but I generally just look at them and go, you're beautiful when you're angry.
Where did AJOT go?
She got another emergency phone call and dipped out.
Oh, okay. I was hoping she didn't think I was being hard on women. I was being hard on Hollywood's portrayal of them.
All right, so this is one of those that I actually want to kind of go over.
Okay.
Damn it.
Nice.
Stop it.
Whoa.
Hold up.
That looks like my ex-girlfriend.
Yeah, right.
Sci-fi. It's one of the most popular genres of our day and age.
Right. So when was the very first science fiction written?
4,500 years ago.
You're not far off the mark. The earliest one that is directly capable of like modern interpretation of what a science fiction concept, like they got on something that it was understandable to the plebes of the day that might represent the concept of going to space, going to the future, going to the past. It's kind of lame. I mean, it's like you would expect. It's not quite science fiction, but it definitely utilizes the premises.
You ever see that cave drawing, the cave painting with the merman?
The one in North Africa? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Sci-fi, baby.
Hey, that could be mushrooms too, though, motherfucker. Like,
Are you telling me Roddenberry wasn't hitting the sauce? Or Arthur C. Clarke?
I wouldn't doubt a bit if Arthur C. Clarke wasn't over there doing some
He lived in
ayahuasca.
Shangri-La. Come on. You don't move to Shangri-La unless you're looking to get a little bit out of this plane.
Yeah, you might have a point there, man. I retract my previous statement. I stand corrected. You got me on that one.
So this what you're talking about, where is this sci-fi at that you're referring to?
This is 2nd century, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Absurd 2nd century space opera. It's about this guy, and he goes like out to space and goes and hangs out on a big rock with a tree. It kind of reminds me of early Dragon Ball Z episodes after a fashion.
There was somebody, I can't remember who it was, and it may have been Arthur C. Clarke. I can't remember. Somebody wrote a book about going to the moon, and when they got there, there were ant people that lived on the moon.
Jules Verne?
It may have been Jules Verne. I think it might have been, because they took a hot balloon.
Jules Verne. There was a French dude before Jules Verne.
But do you know the story I'm talking about, though, with the ant people? Hello.
Hello. Turn that phone correctly.
I'm over here having a I'm sorry.
Ant people.
Ant people.
What ant people are you? No.
They just had 2 arms or 4 arms and 2 legs. Or were they actually ant people?
They were ant people, like people that look like ants. And they had a society, and the guy learned a lot from them, and they had him prisoner for a while, and then they let him go, and he went back to Earth and told everybody, and nobody believed him.
Wait a second.
I think it was Jules Verne.
Karl Marx? You sure this is some Stalin? Like,
I think it was Jules Verne.
Did they have mandibles?
Yes.
How about womandibles?
Womandibles.
Mandibles.
They were woke.
Womandibles? What?
And their pronouns were they and zer.
There's only a couple that I use. I use they if I'm talking about other people. If they want to be known as another person, yeah, I might call them they. If I'm talking to someone, them they.
I'm sorry, I don't participate in delusions. We have to meet. We have to take some level of.
If I'm talking to them personally, you're either he or she, or maybe an it. I'll give you an it. There's a lot.
You give me the information beforehand. You can't freak out if I don't know something you haven't told me, and you give me no evidence of the fact. So
we cannot proactively change the English language.
And let me do with it as I please. But if I make a mistake, don't freaking screw me up. Especially if I've known you for 35 freaking years and you showed up last week as Betsy.
Right.
Just give me some time, bro. Girl.
Yep. I have a cousin that has that same issue with me.
Just saying, like, if I've never met you before and you present as a woman, I'll treat you as a woman to start with, because that you're making the effort. I don't have no disrespect for people. It's just if it just might not be easy. Depends on circumstances. It's individual for each person. If I don't know you, I don't care.
Well, I had a stepdaughter. And she was Danielle when I was taking care of her before I got divorced. And then after I got divorced, she was 16. She decided to become a Danny instead of Danielle. A Danny. Okay, I'll call you Danny.
More power to you.
I still call her Danielle.
Somebody else says I'm not racist. I hate everybody.
I tell you what you do. You go and you get her a 4-wheel drive truck, give it to her. You'll be a favoritist ever.
Oh,
Get her something with a lot of chrome and a broken back glass.
for a bull dyke lesbian chick? Yeah,
I don't
know
no. Yeah,
4-wheel
exactly.
drive
Sam.
That's what she turned into. That's what she turned into, though. But
Okay.
whatever.
Okay,
And
she's a
that's
4-wheel
fine.
drive Subaru.
Yeah, you go get her a
A
Baja.
Subaru, there you go. Those things can get anywhere, those damn Subaru Outbacks. Damn Outbacks. I don't know why we're not calling Australians queer, because those Subaru Outbacks, man.
Whoa.
That's what I
Damn.
was saying. Go get her a Subaru Outback.
Oh.
Get her an El Camino. It's the mullet of
I have
cars.
a good Australian friend. The El Camino is the mullet.
Yeah. The Ranchero is like the ducktail. Possibly a rat tail.
Ranchero is a wannabe El Camino.
Okay, I have a Toyota Corolla. What does that make me?
Hold on.
I have a Toyota Corolla. What does that make me?
We'll get to that in a second. I got to challenge this. Actually,
Old?
the 2 years, I think, before the first El Camino.
Say again?
The Ranchero was first. It
Was
was
it?
based off, I think, a Ford Galaxy, a Ford Comet, something
Well,
like
the
that.
El Camino is cooler, but neither one of them make any sense.
No. Hey, I'll give you one thing, man. Whoever it was that put together the ascent on this El Camino out here, he knew what the fuck he was doing. That
So you
whole
saying
rear
you got
end
one that'll actually pull something?
Dude, it is snatched straight out of a C10 truck.
Okay. I can see
that
that.
rear end is massive, dude.
The only experience I had with El Caminos was my dad had a couple of them, and they were cars. They were not trucks. They were cars, but they had a bed like a truck, but you couldn't put anything in it because it would scrub the wheelbase because it couldn't hold any weight, and you couldn't pull anything with it besides a boat.
Well, you got to put shocks in that thing. You got to put the right coils.
It's horrible.
Leaf sprays and whatnot. Like mine. The rear leaf springs, I pulled them out and put coilover struts with a stiffer rear end. I installed. Actually, no, I completely disassembled the whole.
Caucasian likes the stiffer rear end.
Yeah, absolutely.
I said, Caucasian likes the stiffer rear end.
200 pounds of freaking something on the back of the truck. Stomp on that motherfucker and it pop a willy living a goddamn stop sign.
Like my second wife, her mother had one of those real long Cadillacs with the fins on it. You know what I'm talking about? 80s, early 80s model. And the entire backside of it was cut out for a hot tub, but they didn't have the hot tub, so they filled it in and made a bed out of it. So it had a truck bed, but it was a Cadillac. Weirdest looking thing I've ever seen.
Do you remember the hearse that David had back in the day? That night, what was it, a 67, 68 hearse? Dude, that thing was running like a freaking 585 or something.
Dude, I'd love to have a hearse. That's perfect.
Just about. It's a little short once you actually get into it. It's a little short.
We got Mama Gnome and Samuel later.
Yeah, bud. Go take your call. See where it takes you.
It might be important.
Might be.
Each year, moviegoers fill up
doing a movie tonight?
Epic space battles, distant planets, spooky aliens, and futuristic technology. Science fiction rules the cinematic landscape. But when did it start? Wind the clock way back, before pulp magazines, before Jules Verne, before H.G. Wells, and before that weird black and white French movie, all the way to ancient Greece in the 2nd century, and you'll find a writer by the name of Lucian. Lucian of Samosata, a wildly popular satirist who delighted audiences
started his book
full of exaggerated humor, which he
is that the guy who started his book by saying none of this is true, don't believe a word I say, I'm gonna lie to you, here's the story. Is that the guy?
Yeah, he invented the concept of bilateral fiction.
Yes,
a story that is told from the perspective of being true That is definitely not true. Previous to this, you had questionable histories that were typically bullshit. They were just
I love that
stories.
name, Genevieve.
Genevieve,
Genevieve, Genevieve, though, I don't care.
Bonsoir. There's a whole fruit cup of weirdos over yonder that love that shit, and they want me to read stuff like the phone book.
That's a thing.
What?
But I can't remember what it is. Something that happened a while back.
That's his whole gimmick. That's his whole thing. Not his whole thing. He's the guy I was doing Scully's House of Thrillers. Is the guy I was doing Wizard of Oz and Peter Pan and all that with. It was tons of fun.
Cool.
Right. You had him on panel last week, I think.
Andrew, what's up?
Fruit cup. I'm sorry, dude. I didn't mean to be offensive. I like fruit cups myself.
Did you call somebody a fruit cup?
I think I did.
You son of a bitch.
I don't know what to tell you, man. I have no
He
defense.
used to ridicule various superstitions, religions, and even political figures. He wrote a ton of stuff and was so beloved that more than 80 of his stories are still around to this day. Read through most of them now and you'll probably think to yourself,
Definitely read that one.
That's because we're not the target audience. Lucian wrote about and poked fun at the culture of his time. He wrote stories that would be appealing to his main readership, namely the educated upper class of Greece. If his works seem boring, unfunny, or confusing, it's because we're almost 2,000 years removed from his witty referential humor. One such tale is Lucian of Samosata's A True...
All right, so look at it from this perspective. If you go back and watch a mid-90s Dennis Miller special, you will get the jokes. But somebody like my daughter would not get any of it because none of it would be referential. They had
No cultural reference
for it. So Dennis Miller would just be a interesting voice with a soft banter, not an
and a
entertainment.
wobbly head.
And he had a bobbly head.
BRB.
All right, bud.
True Story, which goes on record as the earliest known science fiction book. It's a tale of outer space exploration, aliens, interplanetary warfare, and cutting-edge technology.
I want to challenge this guy right here. Because if you've never read the Mahabharata, you might think this is the earliest science fiction, but them screwballs had cities flying off into space and people living on the moon, and Bhima hopped up there at one point in time because he got mad at somebody. It's wild, dude. There's this one scene that's repeated over and over, and it has to do with an uncanny, an unerring accuracy. Arjuna is challenged by... Actually, he's not directly challenged. There is a challenge. You can become king of the entire freaking world, but you have to be able to marry this princess. The princess requires that you be the greatest archer in history to marry her. So she creates this challenge where there are 7 axes thrown by 7 masters at a target, and you have to launch an arrow and pass the arrow through the heads of all the axes and ring the ring that will be used in the wedding. And Arjuna's half god. He shows up and does his Patriot missile shit, and of course he wins. He marries the chick, and on their wedding night, he sneaks out the window and goes off to war with his brand new acquired army. Which was the reason he married her in the first place, because they kicked his ass and he was going back. So he came over and was like, "Give me your army." She was like, "Okay, you got my army." And he's like, "Laters. Deuces." And this is maybe not Hindi, I don't know, but it's old Indian legends. And so, like, he sends his brother to his wife to go take care of his household. And while he was at war, he fathered 4 children that were genetically his own, but put there by his brother because they're half gods and they can do that.
Dude. Sorry it took me so long. You know, I got
Well, it
3
was
new
Dude.
kittens, right?
We got up to 17 viewers while you were gone, and the second your ugly mug came back, we dropped off half.
Damn it, man.
That's
Magic. They took
crazy.
freaking walked away.
All right.
Oh,
You know how I got
crazy.
3 new kittens, right?
yeah, I saw that.
Yeah.
I just walked outside and my littlest kitten is chewing on a rabbit by itself. All the other cats are sitting around watching it eat the little rabbit.
Yeah, I got you one, didn't you?
A baby rabbit? A kitten's eating a baby rabbit, or is it a? Okay.
Dude, a cat.
I was gonna say, I can't believe Mama Rabbit wasn't taking down a little kitten, but okay, that makes sense.
A full-grown house cat, a 2-pound, 3-pound house cat, your standard tomcat will
Murderer.
take down a 14-pound turkey, and the turkey will never know it was there or realize that it's dead. It'll be
I'm
over
pretty
there.
sure if you stop moving, it'll eat you.
Yeah, it'll starting with your eyeballs. Yes. In fact, I have a theory about.
Well, cats will eat their dead owners.
Absolutely. I have a theory about some of the missing 411 folks are actually bobcat and lynx kills because they twisted their ankle, stubbed a toe, some tiny thing, yelled out in pain, and that's dinner bell for a bobcat.
I blame that on cartoons. They anthropomorphize animals to the point where people do not understand the danger of nature.
Hey, you might not be wrong on that. I don't know though, dude. When you see a wild bobcat, it don't look friendly.
A bear doesn't either, but if you watch enough Winnie the Pooh, you might be stupid enough to go, "Oh, look at the cute bear."
Is that why all these people walk up to these moose up in the northern states and stuff? You think it's because of cartoons? Really? You think it's because of cartoons? I don't think so. But
no, I'm sorry.
I don't think so.
Pray first. That's freaking beautiful, dude.
You know, I would say they were trying to get a better shot with their cell phone up close. So let's step a little closer to this wild animal because I want to be popular on YouTube more than anything.
It's the belief that you can survive anything, that you're just going to get a picture and walk away, right?
Yeah, when most people think animals will run if they get scared.
But that's because most animals do run for me whenever I get scared.
Yeah, but a moose is not that animal.
Well, you are pretty scary.
No, I have a pistol. They're going to get the fuck on.
They run.
They start chewing.
They run towards me.
If they start chewing on my ass, it'll be after 18 rounds going that son bitch. I died of lead poisoning after I'm dead.
Listen, I have a Noah complex. Animals will come up to me, and I mean mean animals that most people can't touch. They will come right to me. I won't walk up to a moose and go, "Hey, buddy, what's up?"
Thank you, anti-at Jack.
Moose are big. Yes, they are.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing about that, Genevieve. If you let nature, it might be stalking you. And I have this thing I do. It is so dumb. There's these people who believe that dogs are actually wild animals, and that whenever they're licking you, they're just tasting you for when you don't defend yourself. Right. And so I've got this stupid thing, like anytime my wife's getting licked by a dog, I look at her and go, "You realize she's just tasting you for later, right?"
Yeah, there's a clear delineation between canine and wolf. Not the same animal.
It's like when she comes home after being gone for a few days and he hugs
Coyote.
her. He stands up and wraps his front paws around her and screams like somebody's trying to beat him or something. It's fucking hilarious.
Ain't that the big dog you got?
Yeah, he's 303 pounds.
Yeah.
Stand up looking straight off his hind legs. I named him Moose because he kind of looks like a moose.
Sick boy.
He's kind of big like one too.
When he's pooping, he looks like the halfway scene in American Werewolf from London, where he's halfway.
Hilarious.
Or he's changing.
And he looks real concerned about it too.
Genevieve knows. She's
All right, I'm
of the
fixing to
north.
drop this off of the live stream. We've got the StreamYard is over there linked and it's pinned in the comments. If anybody wants to hop up and check out what we're doing after the fact, you can come in and do it. Probably going to put on Serenity if I can manage to find it. It's one of my first movies I bought when I first got my Amazon account. So it's like way back at the beginning. I usually find something else I want to watch before I get there.
Well, I just like talking to you because I hadn't talked to you in a while.
I usually put it on with it muted.
Yeah.
But, I'm going to go backstage for a second. I'm going to do the little play out.
Goodbye, everybody.
Give you the whole
We love
scene.
you. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe and share, because this is a beautiful thing that Caucasian has going here. So make sure that you do that and support. And also hop over to Untethered Live on YouTube or Rumble or Spotify and check out what I'm doing over there.
He is absolutely everywhere. Go look up Untethered Live on whatever you happen to be holding in your hand, and you'll probably find it. He's got that thing figured out. Hey, Fab Daddy, I know you don't want to be on screen at all.
Yeah. Like
I
he
didn't even
said,
recognize
that guy,
you, buddy.
last guy said, just replay that and do it.
All right, bud. I'll bring you back up this second. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that's the end of this broadcast. That concludes our broadcast day. How about them apples? One of these? This one.
Sorry. Good news, though. We're going to have to move the party somewhere a little bit more private, but you're all invited. Lorenzo will give you the details. Yeah!
Just getting started. I know that you want it, baby. Just get on it, ready to go. We know how to